Coincidentally, right after we released the last 2 episodes covering Jamie's sentencing hearing, new legislation was introduced in Illinois that could possibly set Jamie free in less than 4 years. On February 17, 2021, Democratic Representative Anne Stava-Murray of the 81st District read and filed a bill to the Illinois General Assembly to amend the statutes governing the eligibility for parole or release. The bill as drafted is HB 2399. Quote, deletes provision that no person serving a term of natural life imprisonment may be paroled or released except through executive clemency. Quote, provides that a person serving a term of natural imprisonment is eligible for parole or mandatory supervised release. Quote, provides a committed person who has served 25 consecutive years of imprisonment may submit a petition to the Prisoner Review Board seeking parole. Quote, provides that if parole is denied, the petitioner shall be eligible to reapply for parole no later than 3 years after denial. If signed, this bill would be effective immediately. We posted this news online, and many of you were eager to know what this means for Jamie. So in a rare occurrence, we all got together to ask him, and then tried to tease out what this means for his case.
If I ever am eligible for the parole exception for natural lifers, I would absolutely be up for it. And look, I'm going to do exactly what I'm going to do. If they were to let me out today, it doesn't matter if I'm 55 or 65. I'm going to hit the ground running, and I'm going to, fight my case and continue to, try. I want to know who killed Bill Little. That's what I want to know. And I'll never stop that fight. But no, I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's just another avenue of trying to win my freedom. I'm skeptical if they're going to get it passed or not, but we'll see.
Tammy, if Jamie gets released on parole, does that mean that he's going to be on parole like, everybody else for the rest of his life for a certain amount of years? That, he's not going to technically be free, right?
I mean, all of those are unknowns because people get different terms of parole. Some people can leave the state, some people can't. There's just different conditions of parole. It could be that he got time served. I don't know. It's very unknown. It's even unknown how they would handle someone who's being represented by the Exoneration Project and has been fighting for his innocence for 20 years. So do they take accountability into consideration only? Because if you didn't do it, is he expected to get up there and say he did? And I've seen people that I thought were not guilty that had to do that just to get out. So those are tough decisions, that he would have to make. But even having the opportunity is amazing. Yeah, you don't know if it would be the rest of your life. You don't know if it would be 3 years. You don't know if it would be 2 years. You don't know if it would be 6 months. I mean, that's all determined by the parole board.
It's very early on. We don't know what this legislation's even going to say once it goes back and forth in the legislature, because it gets rewritten several times, and you never really know what the final product's going to be. But if the word is parole in this legislation, then he's going to be on parole. Yeah, it lends itself to everything you said, but he's still going to have to go through some hoops once he gets out. But the biggest thing is he'll be out.
Yeah. So, Tammy, how do you feel about that after you've been supporting Jamie as a advocate now for 11 years maybe, or longer? How do you feel about if this all came to fruition and he was released, it being on parole with no exoneration? And how would you feel about that? Would you just let it go and then continue the fight when he got out and just be happy he got out? Or is that a little deflating, but also really happy?
It's not deflating at all to me. First of all, his sentence was all fucked up. He shouldn't have gotten a life without parole sentence in the first place. The statute said it was 20 to 60 years, and the judge took it upon himself to give him life without parole. So I think that's one argument that we could make before a parole board, to really take a hard look at those transcripts and see what transpired during the time compared to the other cases that were being prosecuted at that time. I mean, Donnie Whalen even got 20 to 20 to 60. He got the max. He got 60 years for his crime, which he's claims innocence and is also being represented by the Exoneration Project. But the crime was bludgeoning his father in a bar, big bloody scene. So there are some horrific crimes of people that were knowingly in gangs, knowingly doing drugs, knowingly selling drugs, had violent prior records that only got 60 years. Now, Jamie has none of that. He never should have been sentenced to life without parole. And I don't care what it would take. Him getting out is the most important thing to me. So I don't care if he had to walk in there and say he did it. If he was getting out and we could fight for his innocence while he was outside, I don't care. Because he needs to be out. He needs to live his life and he needs to spend time with his family, time with his kids, time with his grandkids. And that's all that matters. Because sitting up there on a principle, in my opinion, of course it's his decision, but in my opinion, it's not worth it because the state just fucking lies anyways. They'll pop up with some other witness, even if he got a new trial. You can't trust that court system because the court system is the one that did this to him. So you're going to sit there and die in prison, because of the court system, because standing on some principle. Meanwhile, you're losing the last years of your life in prison when he could be out here while he's young enough to do everything that he wants to do. And I don't care what it would take for him to do it. I'd be over the moon.
We've also seen in the case of Donnie Whalen getting out and going on house arrest, the prosecutors in McLean County, even the new ones, are hella spiteful and, threw him back in for house arrest violations for, I think, driving the hardware store or going to the grocery store, stuff like that. So, I mean, even if he does get out on parole through some kind of grace, there's always a way to get their hooks back in him. And I think it's very poignant that this legislation just, went up after we just finished our sentencing episodes, 2 episodes on that. It's awesome that we did a good job highlighting that long sentencing debate about why he was given life versus the 30 to 60 years. And because those points you brought up, that all makes perfect sense. So there's, layers and layers to this, not only actual innocence and exoneration, but a corrupt sentence and, unfair prosecution and so much more that goes to it.
If the judge didn't step in on this, we would already be talking about Jamie becoming eligible for parole, regardless of any new legislation. It's an important point. That's what Tam was making, is this judge caused this. At this point in time, Jamie's already served so many years. He would already be, chances are 20 to 60, he'd already be up for parole.
Yeah, because I do recall during sentencing, I was like, chuckling to myself because the judge sentenced him to life without parole, but then gave him credit served for all that time he had spent in county. So I was like, credit served, like 3 years credit served. Okay, but you know what? Now that's a good thing because how many years is that now? From 99 to 2021, that's 22 years, right? So
I think it might be a little wishful thinking, though, to think that legislation would provide exceptions for people where a judge stepped in. But we have no idea what this legislation would even say. It does seem right now like it's not a bad time to get it passed, though.
If it got passed at all, he would be up for parole before a Republican governor got in there. We don't know. Right now, it's before the Rules Committee, and there's 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And I know people have all different kinds of views about politics, and I'm not here to talk about that. But we do know traditionally, Democrats are more liberal towards criminal justice issues.
Right. I wouldn't worry that much about the governor as I would about the legislature itself, because even if a Republican governor gets in, it doesn't mean he's going to guide new legislation that just got passed or revoke it.
Right.
So it just seems like a good time to get it done. To me, 4 years is still ridiculously too long, but it's just reality.
Yeah, but if Jamie had an end date or a possible end date, his whole outlook would change, because now, you ask him about his dreams for the future and stuff, and he'll tell you, but only scratch the surface, because right now that's not a reality for him. He can't survive in there daydreaming about going on vacation or, hanging out with his family and barbecues and remodeling Tammy's house to suit his new tastes. He can't talk about all that kind of stuff right now. But if he had an avenue, I think those 4 years would just fly by for him, and he would happily serve them.
When and that also makes a difference for me, as far as having hope. That's a hope that we didn't have. Literally, you're pinning your hopes on a new trial, an evidentiary hearing. The bar is so fucking high. Or clemency. And all of those bars are just extremely high. But I just feel so strongly that if we could make that argument at a parole hearing, you can have witnesses. We can get those people from Florida. We can do the proper sentencing hearing the way that it should been done. We could get Maureen Kevin up there. We can get the people from Florida that said he was a hard working. I trusted him with the keys to my house and my equipment, and we did jobs together and worked together, and he was a stand-up, straight-up guy. He had a house. He took care of his kids. He did all of that just because that sentence was so wrong.
I mean, I'd be confident in a parole hearing for Jamie.
Yeah, absolutely. We could all get up there and vouch for him. Yes,
and once he got out, Leslie had mentioned too that they can get their hooks back in people. I have a feeling they'd just leave Jamie alone. I mean, he's not going to do anything when he gets out that's going to be raising any red flags. He never has. And his case
he's not going to shut up, though. He's going to go right back to the media. Like Good. He did, he went into that prison screaming in the media, and I'm sure that's how he's going to come out.
And at this point, I think that they'd be hard pressed to come after him when he's got such a strong case. Some other people that get out on parole, they weren't great people. And they're not doing great things when they get out. And of course, they're going to fall back into the system. He's not that guy. Yeah. He's an innocent guy.
And he has a tremendous support network too, because no matter what, I mean, my biggest fear is that they would make him stay in McLean County, because that's what
that would be a restriction that would be terrible.
Or in the state.
It's a big state. And the whole county issue would be awful, I think. But the state's a big state. That's at least a little bit more freedom than forcing him to stay in that county where they fucked him over.
I would think that they wouldn't want him there. I would think that they wouldn't want Donnie there. We're not going to have to deal with you anymore.
You did all this work on the case for so long. So now if this big parole hearing does come up, all these people who can vouch for him, all these witnesses, they're all fresh. They will all absolutely do it because they've already been vetted. They've already committed to it. You have all the paperwork, all the affidavits. There's a lot of stuff you could bring forward. And also, it seems like Jamie always has some other kind of hope all the time. Like, with this message in a bottle thing, we're kind of just like, oh my God, like what's going to come of it? And, what's our next project going to be? And now look what happens. It's like, it just, as luck would have it or fate would have it, he has always got something else to move on to. And, a lot of that is because of you and all the work that you've been doing just to keep it moving and keep it fresh. And,
it takes a
that's
village.
Awesome.
Now you have to keep all these people alive.
Oh yeah.
They're dying off. Man,
That's the problem too. Is you go 4 more years and you got to see who's still here. It makes you realize how important it is for Jamie to get out at all costs. It doesn't matter how he gets out; he just needs to get out because we only get one life and there's only so many years.